Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. And of course, we are full on back into Star Wars today because, unless you've been living under a rock, the trailer for Maul Shadow Lord was dropped last week. So we need to get into that. I wasn't even expecting it. Was that a surprise drop? Or
It was kind of a surprise drop before the drop of the trailer itself. Because you know how social
they did the
internet
teaser
and social media is nowadays. So you have to have teasers for teasers. Because even this trailer is technically
it's a teaser
trailer. So they released a teaser trailer for this teaser on a Tuesday, I think, last week, something like that, and then they released the actual trailer on a Wednesday. So they did. Thankfully, because they rarely do that, they gave us a warning that it was going to happen. But yeah, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one, to quote Senator Palpatine on that one. So we've been talking about one of those shows that that we've been expecting for a while, since it was announced at Star Wars Celebration Japan last year, and here we are. I think it's kind of perfect timing to look at what Star Wars is going to look like in 2026 and beyond after the news of Kathleen Kennedy stepping down and Dave Filoni and Brennan stepping up. It's nice to kind of shift gears from that news to just get into the meat and potatoes of upcoming Star Wars. So we have finally a trailer for this. I'm surprised that we don't have another trailer for Mandalorian and Grogu, but that'll come out eventually. But for now, let's talk about everyone's favorite ex-Darth, ex-Sith Lord, and current Shadow Lord and future crime syndicate mafioso, or whatever you want to call it, Mr. Maul. So, like I had talked to you about the trailer that they released in Japan a year ago, and we finally got something that everyone could see. So, we're not a reaction channel, but we talk about like how we felt as we watched it. So let's start with you, since I saw a trailer in Japan. This one was different from that one, from what I can remember. So let's start with you. Let's start with unfiltered reactions. Like, what did you think when you saw this?
So it was actually different then from the one you saw in Japan?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was not expecting it. As you know, I haven't been the best at paying attention to social media, and less this year since I've been super busy at, being an adult. But Josbando himself actually first sent me the teaser of the teaser at work. He's like, I know you're busy. Take a pause. Watch this. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening. And it was so well done, the way that they did that teaser of the teaser, that it was like all kind of just artsy, and it looks very Visions. It was so it got me really, really excited about the actual trailer, obviously. And then again, it happened while I was doing work. Wally sends me a text like, are you busy? A little bit. It doesn't matter. Take like a minute and a half break and watch the trailer for Maul. You will thank me. And also, it's a good thing that a few of my coworkers are actual Star Wars fans. So it's like, oh my God.
That's good.
And there's a huge TV at the conference room. It's like, would it be okay if we like sat at the conference table and just watched the trailer for Maul? And like, there's a trailer for Maul? Yes, please. So
did they know that was a show that was upcoming, or was it a complete surprise for them?
No, because they're kind of older, so they don't really pay attention to a lot of the new Star Wars stuff. They kind of ask me usually, because they know I have the podcast about like what's upcoming every so often. So they had no idea that it was even out. So it's like, oh my God. And the reaction was really positive. Myself, I was just like, as we've said a million times, just Star Wars animation keeps
getting better
and better. And the trailer for this looks so insane. And to first listen to like Sam Witwer's voice coming through as like narrating the whole trailer was so nostalgic. To oh God, we're getting our Clone Wars Darth Maul back, and going into his next steps. The first moment you see him release the double lightsaber is just goosebumps gloriousness. The lighting on it that they're doing, and kind of the desperation of the Jedi who are just trying to survive post Order 66, and how he narrates, the reality that they're in now, and how everybody kind of has to look at the world in a different way. I thought was very poignant and really well, thought out, considering the trailer's like a minute and 30 seconds or something like that.
Yep.
And it's violent, which I like. And the fights look amazing. And then towards the end, that little bit of the use of Duel of the Fates soundtrack was just kiss. So all around, I think it's exactly what a teaser trailer should be. It gets you really pumped and excited about the show without giving too much away. And I don't know, I think Maul just deserves his chance to shine. And I think this is going to be a great use of Darth Maul. Well, Maul now, Shadow Lord.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I wanted to kind of read something from the Star Wars.com article that came out when the trailer came out, because I thought it was really interesting. Because when we saw the trailer in Japan, one of the things that everyone noticed was the heightened art style of the series, because obviously it's in the same animation style as the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars, but somehow a little more elevated, and it felt like there were brush strokes as the lightsaber was kind of like moving and stuff like that. But like it's nice to confirm, right, that's the things that we perceived were intentional, right? It's like the next evolution, for lack of a better word, to this animation style. So I'm quoting now from the StarWars.com article that came out. It's basically saying cinematography, lighting, and VFX director Joel Aaron really took it up a notch with going back to the practical ways of capturing brushstrokes by painting them on glass, shooting them strategically, placing them in shots, says executive producer and vice president of Lucasfilm Animation, Athena Portillo. He even went back to establish map paintings on canvas. There's always different challenges with every show that we do, but this one in particular raised the bar. We always wanted the animation body mechanics and the facials to be more fluid from our previous work, and animation director Keith Kellogg worked closely with the CGCG and our internal animation team to upgrade the performances of our main characters. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding right there, and it's one of those things that we love about animation as a medium, right? It's not stagnant ever. And I think that's one of the reasons that so many Star Wars fans, ourselves included, are so drawn to Star Wars animation, just because of how artful and creative and dynamic that they are. So it's, it's truly amazing, like how much better it just keeps looking. And to kind of go back into that handcrafted, matte painting with the brush strokes on glass to superimpose on the digital, it's kind of like merging all the different techniques, right, that make animation such a beautiful medium for these stories, that it really, really, really elevate the show and make it look that much more distinct and still unique, even though, again, like we were saying, even though it's the Bad Batch and Clone Wars animation style, still feels distinctly its own. But yeah, I thought it was really great. It really nailed the vibe also of the era and of Maul. And when that trailer started and we're, like it's the people rappelling down the skyscraper, whatever it is, in a city that at first I thought it was Coruscant, and they're like in the underworld of Coruscant like we've seen before, but apparently it's a new planet called Janix.
That surprised me.
Yeah, which I think it's clever. It's it's just like let's give a familiar type of thing, but let's make it new by making it a little different. What's it say here? It's 1 part Gotham, 1 part Metropolis, and 100% Star Wars. It's a city built into a crater of the planet that is untouched by the Empire. So I mean, really good way to just like establish that it's unique yet familiar. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I mean, the trailer also does a really good job, I think, of balancing expectations. It's like, okay, you're going to get Maul action in the way that we've always wanted to see Darth Maul, and being, savage, right? But also not giving us enough so that we don't know what the whole story is going to be. Because I think it's going to be really interesting to see how all these different pieces come together, like the person that's hunting him. I forgot if we have his name, and obviously the Jedi characters that are going to be here. That's going to be like a proxy Ezra in many way, and I want to talk about her a little bit more later. But I think the
Inquisitor coming after him. The
Inquisitor, Marok, and the second brother.
There's a lot.
So it's nice. It's nice to see all these pieces of Star Wars media coalesce with the show, because there's also opportunities for other characters to maybe return that I want to speculate a little bit about, because obviously the show is set before Solo,
right,
and before Crimson Dawn is established. So, like based on the trailer so far, like what do you think? What are you expecting to see of the story and the characters? What do you think Maul is, and what do you think his motivations are for this series?
that is such a tough question because I'm kind of terrible at knowing like the legend stories and a lot of the alternate stories that we've gotten from Maul. To me, just Maul is such an interesting character, especially because when we first saw him in the prequel trilogy, he was such an interesting character, and the way that he was portrayed and the way that he fought, and he felt really underused in the prequel trilogy, like incredibly underused. I feel like kind of insulting in a way. And the fact that he had this chance to return through the Clone Wars and Rebels, I thought it's such a good testament to good storytelling, and it's so great that we know how he ends. We know that final fight with him in Obi-Wan, which is one of the best fights in Star Wars, period. So, but there's so much in the middle that we don't know about. We don't know how he became the actual Shadow Lord and Crimson Dawn and everything. Like, we got little glimpses of it in Solo, but we don't really know. So at this point, he's just, to me, this person who had complete faith in the Empire and the Emperor and was completely discarded and left to rot, and kind of had to claw his way out of a giant existential hole, literally, with, fake.
Literally, that's true.
Literally.
True. Yep.
With, a completely robotic, like half of his body, which to me is still insane that he survived that, and kind of navigate his way into the world as, a broken toy. And then from what we've seen so far, he's kind of just trying to make a life for the rest of the broken toys in the world. I love the line that it's like, we've been surviving, but we haven't been living. And it's kind of the establishment of, we're not Jedi, we're not Sith, we're not the good guys, we're not the bad guys. We're done with just existing, and we are trying to like find a life for ourselves, which I think is the best setup for an anti-hero.
Yep. Totally agree.
So aside from that, I don't really know what to expect that we're gonna get. I don't know if we're gonna get maybe Ventress in there somewhere, because there's a possibility for that, especially now that we know that she comes back and she's no longer, the bad guy that we knew. She is also an anti-hero. I don't know if it's through Maul that she finds that somehow. I don't know, but there's so much possibility for a lot of characters coming back. I don't know what you thought about who's that, but
in terms of like showing up, and for me, like
Quinlan Voss,
it's
Quinlan Voss.
Here's the issue, and I have to tie this into something else before I kind of answer who might show up, and it's tied into the release schedule. And usually animated shows in Star Wars have longer seasons, right, than regular live action shows, for for better or worse. Even though I think live action, as we've talked in the past, like we're tired of the 8-episode live action series, and they should be I like Andor, the 12. I think that feels like a good happy medium between like a 24 episode,
which is too long.
Season. 12 seems like a like that happy spot.
Happy medium.
8 too short, as we've seen with a lot of these other shows, like Obi-Wan Kenobi is like not enough, or Acolytes. Despite loving those shows, it's just not enough to develop them. And I think that's somehow it's infecting animation for X or Y reason. I don't know why, because the Bad Batch was usually, I think, like 14, 16 episodes, something like that. And now Maul's going to be only 10. 10 episodes, and they're going to release them 2 at a time. So that means we only get to have this show for 5 weeks, which I think is kind of unfair.
Do we know how long each episode is scheduled to be? Is it going to be regular animation where they're like 20 minutes or?
I think so. I think it's going to be between the 20 to 30 minute mark.
Yeah.
So,
mark.
I mean, I don't want to speculate. Sorry, but it's one of those things
Usually
that
animation is around there. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where I think there's benefits to it because it makes the story very lean and precise, and it's just like we're trimming everything, so it's like the exact story that we're gonna tell, and we just get to where we want quicker, but also that there's there's the selfish issue that I just want to spend
that we want
more
it to last longer
with Star Wars, exactly, and then the the possibilities that having more episodes are kind of removed, right? Because I think with more episodes, you have time to have, I hate to use the word filler, right? But for lack of a better word, like those filler episodes where like other things can happen that aren't part of like the main storyline of the season. And with, and I think that, going back to your question, limits the opportunities for other characters to show up.
Yeah.
Which is why I think like, Quinlan Voss is, I think, probably not in the realm of this show, just because like with 10 episodes, I don't think there's time. But
to bring him in,
right. But my 2 or 3, I guess, my 3 big theories of characters that would show up, and I think I'm gonna put them in order of probability, is Dryden Voss, number 1. I think that Dryden Voss might show up just because, one, they already have his character animation from the Clone Wars because he showed up in the final season. 2, it makes sense in the timeline because Maul's going to create his syndicate, and we know he's in, he collaborates with Dryden. And then 3, like, we know that this will lead somehow into the events of Solo. So, and we know that Dryden's there. So it's, it's one of those things that makes sense in the story, right? And attached to that is obviously Qi'ra, and because we know Qi'ra is Dryden's lieutenant. We know that when Dryden departs the galaxy, she takes command and calls Maul, and we know also through the comic books that she is doing kind of her thing and trying to take down Palpatine. So she's involved with Maul in more ways than one, but I think it's too early in the timeline for Qi'ra to show up. I don't think she can show up before Dryden, or maybe she can. I don't know. But those are like my two main characters that might be showing up, probably closer to the end of the series. Then the other one's Darth Vader. You're not sending Marok and the other Inquisitor. I forgot which number that Inquisitor was.
Without Vader instructions.
Without Daddy Vader showing up, to be like, well, you guys couldn't finish the job. I'll go do it myself. So those are my 3 theories, because I also thought of Asajj Ventress, but I'm like, based on where the show might be going, I'm just like, I don't think there's time for Asajj, but who knows? What about you? What were your theories? I mean, I know you threw out Quinlan, but who else do you think might be showing up?
I said Asajj, but now the way that things are going, I have no idea. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's too early to speculate, and like I said, I don't know enough about Maul's story, and I definitely need to rewatch Solo. I haven't rewatched it in a long time. So I don't know a lot about the intricacies that happen there, but it might be unnecessary for this show, though, because it's like pre that. So I think it's important for fans to, come into this with like new eyes and just be able to see the evolution of Maul. And I think it's a good starting point for people that not necessarily have gone into Star Wars animation before, but were interested in the character of Maul. And then maybe it'd be a gateway for them to actually start getting into Star Wars animation as well. So I like all the entry points for Star Wars. So every time that something new comes out that is exciting, I always think about it that way. Like, what would a new person getting into Star Wars would think?
I mean, and it's funny that you say that, because I was watching right before we started recording. I was rewatching the trailer with my partner. Full disclosure, she doesn't like animation that much, and she's a casual Star Wars fan. She likes Star Wars, but she's not. She's not in the lore, the lore as we are. And while we were watching the trailer, all of a sudden, like, she sees that it's Darth Maul, and she's like, "Oh, is this before Episode 1?" And it's like, "No, this is after." She's like, "But isn't he dead? Didn't they cut him in half?" I'm like,
"Oh,
yes, he's
sweet
cut in
summer
half.
child."
Exactly. I was like, yes, he got cut in half, but he survived. Like, how did he survive? And I was like, well, the dark side, his hatred. And it's like, how did he get his legs? And I'm like, well, Mother Talzin. And she's like, oh, and she's like, you know what? I don't care. I don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
So that was a funny interaction. So, but based on that, I'm also like wondering exactly like what are people's might not be as averse.
Yeah.
Because I remember also when I saw Solo in the big screen for the first time when it came out, I went to see it with my family. And when Darth Maul shows up, well, Maul at this point, he's not Darth anymore. Yeah. And my dad also looked at me. He's like, "Didn't he die?
Then he did."
And I'm just like, no.
So much.
So it'll be interesting. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. Although I must imagine that because Star Wars animation is more niche, right, than the live action stuff, that most of the people will know the backstory, and if they don't know, they'll be hopefully motivated to then go back back and go to Clone Wars and see it and like discover that for the first time and get to enjoy the way that we did. So that's an exciting avenue for new fans always. But speaking of new, there are them. I mean, Maul is a character that we know and love and seen in multiple stories in Star Wars, but there is like one character that looks like it's going to be the second lead to Darth Maul, and it's a young Twi'lek character, a Jedi that has survived the Jedi Purge. Her name is Devon, and to quote the StarWars.com article, she's a young person who's living through challenging times and realizes that the future she once thought she was going to have is no longer possible, and so she has to adapt. So very Ezra coded, right? Like there's someone who believes in the Jedi, who's learning the Jedi way, who's lost because there's no Jedi Order anymore. And then, lo and behold, Maul shows up as a somewhat of a mentor figure to lead them in or out of darkness. Obviously, we'll see. We saw how that turned out with Ezra. But what was your impression of her character based on the trailer?
Yeah, I mean, my heart went out to her. You can tell that she's, a very young Jedi, just in a very tumultuous world. And like I was saying before, it's very darkness coded. Like you can see that and I hadn't realized it until you said it, that it is very combination Gotham with Metropolis, but more towards like in the way that it's like kind of bright in the higher places, it's very Metropolis, but the darkness of it is very Gotham. And, growing up as probably an orphan child that was stolen from her family to be trained by the Jedi, and all the promises of the light being indoctrinated into her, and now finding herself in the streets literally and probably not knowing what is right and wrong, because the Jedi are so adamant about that everything is completely black and white, and being thrown into the tumultuous present of the world post Order 66 and the dissemination of the Jedi. I mean, I don't know what I would have done as a young person, with all the responsibility of you're supposed to be a hero, but we're all gone, and how am I supposed to live? I'm really looking forward to how her character is supposed to develop and how her interactions are going to be with Maul. And also Maul was also complete disillusion, because for him the dark was the light. He was the right hand of the Emperor until he wasn't, and he was so incredibly easily discarded. So I think it's, like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see how all the, I hate to keep referencing the Island of Broken Toys, but that's what it feels like. All these discarded people who had so much potential, how they kind of rebuild themselves back up and find their place somehow within this very, very destroyed galaxy far, far away at this point in the timeline of Star Wars. So
yeah, no, I agree. And there's something that you had mentioned, which was the quote that Darth Maul says. Maul, he's not Darth anymore. Damn it. Old habits are hard to break.
Hard to break.
It's a great Chicago song. Hard habit to break. You don't listen to Chicago, listen to that song. It's a good one, especially if you got broken up with. Anyway, I digress. But you said the quote, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it verbatim, but he says, we survive, but we do not live, which I think it's so poignant, right? Especially, we always got to bring it to the real world and everything that's happening. And right now, the world, the world's on fire, and there's so many things that are, it's a great world if you're part of a privileged society that is kind of, immune to a lot of the horrible things that are happening. But for most of us and the majority of people and not just in the States but in the world, right? Like life is not like you can't live in a comfortable way, and you're being oppressed by the systems of control. And like in the Star Wars is the Empire. Here it might be Trump, but like they're like all these systems that are just designed to oppress you, that don't just let you enjoy life. I think it's kind of a very
oppress and keep you ignorant. And
yeah. It's extremely poignant. And it's just like one of those things that I'm just like, holy crap! Like Star Wars always hits and saying like the things that I need to say when you need it to. And I think that her character, Devon's character, is such a great proxy, especially like you were saying with Darth Maul, where Darth Maul is also in a place where he's figuring out his place in the world, because he used to be like in this in Palpatine's cult, right, where he was serving the dark side and doing all the bad things and in service for fascism and wanting to put the Empire and doing horrible things like maybe ISIS doing, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, when he's not needed anymore by that system of control, that of the Empire, he's discarded. So it's like
thrown away like trash.
The same way that Tony Gilroy was saying in Andor, right? Like the system inevitably eats its young, because it always needs to like find an enemy and discard even the tools that it used to build itself up. And Darth Maul, Maul is like one of those tools that's also discarded. So it'll be interesting to see like how they both come at it from opposite sides, right? Because he's figuring out his place in a fascist world that discarded him from the dark side, but she's also coming from like this world that's now hunting her in this fascist empire from the light. So it's just like how do you,
because the Jedi have now become the villains of the story. So I mean, the story's already written by the victors, so now she's a bad guy suddenly.
Exactly.
She's a Jedi who was trained to believe that she was the hero, and now she's typified as the villain. So I think it's going to be really interesting to explore that.
And what does Darth Maul have to offer her, right? Because they're both ostracized, they're both on the outskirts, they're both hunted. The Inquisitors are after them both, presumably. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic, which we saw a little bit, right, of what that can look like with Ezra and Maul back in Rebels. But Devon is fresh from the Jedi Temple, so she's seen what the Jedi are in a way that Ezra never did. We see her Jedi Master Iko Diodaki, which must be one of the most Star Wars names ever in the history of Star Wars. So like she's with her master, so we'll see. I'm convinced that he's going to live long in this series.
No, the masters never live long.
The master never live long. She needs a new father figure, like her. She's gonna lose Master Iko Diodaki and replace him maybe with Mr. Maul over here, and see what happens when that happens. So I'm looking forward to seeing like what those dynamics look like. But
so this is post Rebels though.
No, pre-Rebels.
This is pre-Rebels. Okay.
Yeah. This is like immediately after season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Okay. So it would be interesting to see how we got Maul to kind of find his place and then end up like this totally revenge-driven character in Rebels. So it's extra interesting.
Very, very. Another thing that is also interesting, and it's a thing that I wanted to get to and save for last, because I think it's the last bit of wild speculation that the internet has been talking about since the trailer dropped at Star Wars Celebration Japan, and is the inspiration that Devon might have had in terms of pre-existing lore. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this character called Darth Talon.
It actually does sound familiar, but I'm terrible at this.
Oh no, you're totally fine.
So please explain.
That's what we're here with for. So Darth Talon is like it's basically like the ultimate fanboy, wish fulfillment, evil, manic goth girl, right? Because she's this red Twi'lek, however you say it, with she's basically female Darth Maul, but instead of being a Sabrak, she's a Twi'lek, and she's a Sith Lord in the expanded universe, and she lived around 137 after the Battle of Yavin, so 100 years after A New Hope,
right?
And she's dealing with, because it's so far into the future, she's dealing with Cade Skywalker, and Cade Skywalker is a descendant of Luke, and he's like the most grunge / emo kid in the world. He does drugs. I mean, it's death sticks, Star Wars version of drugs.
Death sticks.
And they were both created like early 2000s, so 2006, if I'm not mistaken, based on what I was reading online. And it makes sense, right? Like emo and pop punk was like all the rage then, and we're post grunge from the 90s, so it kind of makes sense that we're doing like a Skywalker that fits the times. But she was that character, right? Right there. So when people saw the trailer at Star Wars Celebration Japan, they saw, like, in the trailer you couldn't really see that she was more pinkish, like she looks in the trailer that just came out. But in the previous one, because we don't really see her that well, it's usually like with the red lights and the saber and everything, she looks a lot more red. So people were thinking like, oh my god, is this going to be the canon version of Darth Talon? Which maybe, I don't know. Like we'll see. But I thought it was, at first I thought it was kind of just like, what are these people going on? Like, always have to tie
everything
to anything. But but the more you kind of dig into it, the more it maybe almost makes sense, because if you remember some of the things that came out a couple of years ago when news about what George Lucas originally wanted to do for the sequel trilogy, he actually liked that character of Darth Talon from Legends, and he wanted to pair her up with Darth Maul to be the main villains of the sequel trilogy. So it almost was going to happen. And if you look at the art of books for The Force Awakens and start reading kind of like the development of that film as it was, being done like in the early 2010s, whenever the sale for Lucasfilm occurred, you can see that, she was part of the scripts and they were doing concept art for her. So she was, she was a character that was being developed. Eventually, her character turned into like what Kylo Ren ended up being. So like, she, I mean, obviously we've seen the sequel trilogy, she's not there, but they were flirting with the idea of bringing her back into canon, especially Daddy George was the one that was pushing that idea. So is this kind of a remnant in a lot of ways for some of the ideas that were being floated around for Darth Talon and Legends and the sequel trilogy? Or is this just a happy coincidence, or is it a cheeky coincidence? Because it could just be a coincidence, but it also could be the creators of the show being like, hey,
a pointed coincidence.
Yeah, it's just like, this is not gonna be that character, but we're gonna make it similar enough that you can be like, hey, we're making a reference to that, even though it's not that. So I don't know if you had any reaction to
I did not have any idea that this is happening. As we've said multiple times, I am not in the know of social media and speculations. But I think it would be really cool if it was, because I do really love when characters that have kind of been discarded, like the characters in the show, like the actual characters in the show, have been discarded and kind of being brought back in new and different ways. I think it would be really interesting if there's something to that. I guess we'll see, when the show happens, and probably we'll never get actual confirmation either way. But I still love how it incites us to talk about Star Wars and characters in Star Wars that do not necessarily exist, but there's always a possibility of them being brought back. So I don't know. I kind of actually like having the discussion. I don't necessarily care all that much if it comes to fruition or not, especially considering that we are wrong most of the time. But but it is really cool to know that this is possibly inspired by a character who is kind of, tied to the Skywalkers, but very far removed.
Yeah.
But that there was an intention of actually bringing her into contact with Maul. I think Maul is very desperately in need of some female influence in his life. So it'd be really cool to see him interact with somebody else in his life that isn't just fully obsessed with, obeying a master, because I feel like that's all Maul has had in his life, up to the point that we meet him here. It's all about obeying, following instructions, being the best, and even after being quote unquote perfect, being discarded anyway. So I don't know. I think it'll be really, really interesting to see how these main characters interact. I think Star Wars animation has been excellent. I love what you were saying about the brush strokes. I noticed that it looked elevated. I didn't know that it was done because of a specific way that they were doing it, because just you were saying in the lightsabers, which is true, but just like the coloring on Maul's face and his, are they horns? Are they bone protrusions? It looked like,
I guess horn protrusions are bone protrusions are horns. I don't know.
Yeah. It kind of looks more like a crown than ever. So I think it really fits into the Shadow Lord theme. And you knew that I had issues with the Clone Wars animation because I'm not a huge fan of kind of the blocky kind of 3D animation style. I fell in love with the show because of the story. And yes, the animation has gotten better, but what I saw in Maul's trailer, it blew me away because it kind of combined that like 3D kind of animation with a more flowy, arty, hand-drawn style of animation, which is what I really love. So, hands down to the animators. Obviously, we're going to gush about the animation style once we see like entire episodes.
Yep.
Ad nauseum. So be prepared for that. Sorry, fans.
Not sorry, though. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, I remember being really excited when it was announced that the show was happening. And I remember you talking about that you saw a trailer during Celebration Japan. And I was excited. And I always love Star Wars animation. But really, after watching this trailer, I'm super hyped. I'm so excited to get like solid Star Wars content starting in April, that we have like a couple of weeks to live with these characters and really get into talking about them. So I think it's going to be great. Star Wars awesomeness.
Yeah. It's gonna be good, and it's gonna be, and like the last thing that I kind of wanted to add in terms of the not analysis, but the way that I think the show is also kind of very clever. It's one of those things where Maul has always been, intentional or not, right? Because I can't speak for the creators, but a mirror of Ahsoka, where Ahsoka is like that light side, like Maul is like they're both apprentices that are abandoned and have to fend for themselves after a fall of their respective masters and all these things. So it'll be interesting. We've seen Ahsoka, like how she thrives in this, well, not, she ends up thriving, but how she struggles, like in this era where she's trying to find who she is and what her place in the galaxy is, and takes an apprentice in Sabine and discovers, meaning and purpose again. It'll be interesting to see that opposite end of Maul, just in darkness, trying to find himself also in this place and trying to find like what it means to be Maul, right? As opposed to Darth Maul, and also take an apprentice and see what, obviously it doesn't end well. We don't see her in Rebels, so it'll be interesting to see like that dynamic of like Maul's story as opposed to Ahsoka's. But with that, it's one of those things that, as hyped as I am for the show, it's like we were talking about previously, it still feels now that we're kind of going back into that same well of things that we know are cool, and like people love Maul, so let's give them Maul, and it's the familiar
instead
era.
Of exploring new stories.
And as much as I'm hype, because I am hype, and it's gonna be amazing, and we're gonna love it, and we have guests lining up for our coverage of the series, so please stay tuned for that. I just want to see new things from Lucasfilm and new eras and new characters, and we can have both. So hopefully like this is a springboard into other things, but for now, we're excited. We're excited for Maul, Shadow Lord.
Definitely. So I think with that, we're done for today, right? I don't know if you have anything else to add. I think we're good.
Just the expectations for some amazing Star Wars.
Just the expectations. So we will be waiting with bated breath for the release of Maul, hopefully for a new trailer for the Mando and Grogu movie, because it was surprising that, they haven't released anything yet. When is that film it's supposed to be this summer, right? Or
May.
is it?
Yeah, it's May something. Like,
so,
I'm sure we'll get a trailer like during the Super Bowl, but who knows?
Oh, 100% probably. But I think that is our coverage for today. So we are the Triad of the Force. Please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking about Maul, Shadow Lord, what the trailer made you feel, if you're excited about the series, what expectations you have, any specific things you want us to cover about Maul or anything else Star Wars or anything else nerd related. So until next time, may the Force be with you.